Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am your host, Peter, and I am joined by my co-host, Brian. We are the Citizens of the World, and I bet you didn't know we had a podcast. Welcome to the Citizens of the World podcast, first edition. You are our honored first guest, and we look forward to this interview.
Exciting.
Hi guys, this is BJ. He is from Australia. He's staying in this hostel, and we decided to interview him because he's a very interesting guy.
Hopefully.
Yeah. All right, so BJ, give a little self-introduction now.
Okay, so, let's see. Where do I start? I came over to the UK in 2020, just before the first lockdown.
Right.
And I was living in London, and I was there for about 6 months. And I managed to get work in a hostel there, so that kept me going through the start of the lockdown. Then I got some more work in the UK, and I was travelling around for about a little over a year. And then after my contract finished, I decided to come to Portugal.
Okay, interesting, good stuff. Would you say that you came to Portugal by choice or by chance?
Yeah, definitely by choice. I wanted to escape the horrible British weather.
Yeah.
Wanted to get close to the ocean and the beach and that kind of thing, and heard a lot of good things about Portugal and Lisbon. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I decided that was the place to go for me. And Britain was just going into winter. At that point, so.
Don't want to be in Scotland, lads.
Well, that's why we came here in January. Yeah, it's 20 back home and 55 here. I'm like, well, I'll take 55 over 20 any day.
Yeah, I'm used to nice sunny Queensland weather,
So tell us about your life in Australia, your upbringing.
Oh well, it's a bit complicated. Well, I'll go back to my studies, I guess. So
Okay.
I studied something called a Bachelor of Spatial Science Technology. It's not as fancy as it sounds. It's just like nothing to do with space. It's like mapping and geographic information. Yeah, like that. Perfect.
Maybe a little bit more information.
A little more detailed than that. Yeah. That's like a representation,
Right.
So so I studied that, and that was in an inland city called Toowoomba.
Okay.
And I wanted to get into GIS, which is sort of for Geographic Information Systems, and it's basically just working on software related to mapping. And you can analyse mapping data and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I'm massively oversimplifying the terminology I use, by the way. A lot of people are like, what the hell's GIS? So studied that, and then I managed to get a graduate job in Brisbane, third biggest Australian city, and it's sort of central east coast. Mm-hmm. So it's a good location. And I worked in that for 11 months, then I lost my job. And then I was trying to figure out what to do while I was looking around for more GIS work, and I couldn't find anything for ages. And around that time, I started to remember how I always wanted to travel, and I started looking into the UK visa, because we get the 2-year working holiday visa. And I realised when I looked into it that I only had 4 weeks to apply. Before I was too old to apply for it.
Oh shoot! You're like, let's go.
Now or never.
So I applied for it, and I got it in like a couple of weeks, which is unusually fast.
Yeah.
Sometimes it takes months. And so I decided to come to the UK. And in that time, I also worked in pumps and irrigation with my brother. So a bit of heavy labouring, swinging a pickaxe in the sun. Isn't too much fun, but it's work. And that kept me going until I left to come over to the UK. Yeah. And then the plan from there was to get some more GIS work over here, because I was still keen on the GIS career at that point. But I couldn't get anything. And it was like, I think like over a year and a half later at that point, since I'd worked in GIS. And of course, without a lot of experience, you start to lose the skills, because it's like, very technology oriented.
Right.
So you got a lot of programming and that sort of stuff.
And that's something that they'd have like a YouTube video for that you can just like reteach yourself.
Yeah. I mean, there is a lot you can learn. You can just learn through self-directed learning.
Yeah.
But I think I sort of started to realise by that point that there's going to be a lot of work to stay current in it
Yeah.
if I couldn't get a job. And I wasn't actually that interested in it, I realised. I'd sort of gone into it for other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, at that point I think I started to realise it was time to start thinking about other things.
Right.
But in the UK, I did get a job related to that. So that was with, I might be jumping a step here, but that was with a company called Ordnance Survey. I don't know if you guys have heard of them.
Nope.
So they're like Great Britain's land surveying company,
Sure.
and they use all kinds of mapping data, and they're quite large. So, but I wasn't doing GIS. I was just doing field work. So I got the job because of my degree, but I didn't get to use my degree in the job.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it still wasn't quite like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm gonna keep a career in this. It was
Right.
just something to keep me working.
Mm-hmm.
And that was after I worked in the hostel in London.
So what's the time frame on that? For how long you were in London? You said you were there for 11 months, and then
Not sure about how long I've been in the UK overall, but I was in London for about 6 months to begin with.
okay.
Yeah. So I think I was there for like a month trying to find something to do. Couldn't find anything. And then somebody put me onto volunteering at hostels.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like some websites you can look up and find hosts. And so I found one in London and got accepted there. So I went and did that for about 5 or 6 months. And then I went to Scotland for a month after that.
Yes.
So
Is it Edinburgh, right?
not Edinburgh that time, no. So I was actually on the west coast of Scotland, the far
Okay.
west coast,
Yeah.
in an area called Kintyre, and
Okay.
it's like it's basically directly west of Glasgow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an absolutely beautiful area. And
That's
I was actually working in an outdoor seafood restaurant.
awesome. That's sick.
Yeah, which is pretty crazy for Scotland.
Yeah.
But it works. It works surprisingly. And I was just like washing dishes and taking food out to tables.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like the volunteering and backpackers. You get room and board.
Mm-hmm.
They feed you a bit, and you can look around the place.
That's
when you're
awesome.
working. Yeah.
Now, would you say you mentioned like you returned to travel after you left your first job,
Yeah.
and you said it was like a dream of yours. Like growing up, like did you always like dream of travel, and then like college
Yeah.
comes around, you're like, okay, I guess I'm gonna do this. Or, like what was that little child in you like wanting to like travel?
Yeah.
And like the story with like that.
Yeah, that's a good question actually. So, I guess I'm like an explorer at heart.
Mhm.
So I love to see new places, and I'm very
Yeah.
curious. If I'm out walking on a trail, I've got to see what's around the next corner.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Your mapping background, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah, it does actually. I never thought about that.
Whoa, yeah, whoa, it's all coming
Indiana
together.
Jones. Yeah.
I've always loved maps. Seeing what's in other parts of the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, that had always been there, I guess.
Mhm.
But life turns out differently than you expect.
Mhm.
And I'm also a person that I guess kind of wings it.
Mhm.
Like I kind of just take things as they come, and I'm not very good at planning too far ahead. So you kind of find yourself in places doing things you didn't imagine you'd do.
Yeah.
And I guess I never had both the time and the money to travel.
Yeah.
So because I wasn't thinking ahead, planning ahead to do that, it was like
You weren't
oh,
working
yeah.
towards this particular goal, is what you're saying. Like,
Yeah. Like I was like, oh yeah, I want to do that one day, but I didn't really think about how to get there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So the losing the job was the thing that that was the catalyst
Yeah.
that
Like,
instigated
that's
me to
it.
start.
I'm just traveling.
Exactly, yeah. Like it had sort of been building up for a while,
Yeah.
and working in that graduate job also made me realise I didn't want to be sitting in front of a computer
Mhm.
every day, and so yeah, all of that together sort of pushed me to go, all right, I've got to take a leap now and go and do something.
Mm.
You'd much rather be walking around Lisbon
Yeah.
with a map in your hand.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, that's beautiful.
Okay, so based on your current daily actions, would you say that your life is headed in the direction that you'd like it to be?
Well, that's complicated. Yeah. Because it's sort of taken me a long time to work out what I want to do with
Mm-hmm.
my life. Like, I always wanted to travel, but that's just an interest, you know.
Right.
I've wanted to be different things over time. Like, I was in the police for 2 years
Okay.
back in Queensland.
Very nice.
Wow.
And and then I was in the GIS. Before that, when I was figuring out what to do after the police, I was interested in electrical work, you know, being an electrician or an electrical engineer. And so it sort of shifted over time as I learn more about myself and figure out what I'm good at or what I could be good at, you know.
Dreams change. I think that's
So it's a lot of trial and error, but I think I've started to realise, like, I've always been interested in social issues and politics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without getting too much into the politics, of course. And I've also always been good at writing and English, like not speaking English. I mean, obviously I'm Australian, so I can speak English, but like grammar and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So it's
Journalism.
like, yeah, I've always had a natural bent towards that, but I never realised it because when I was pursuing other interests, I didn't really take that into consideration. So I guess now that I've realised that, I've started taking steps to try and see if I can make a career out of something that aligns with my interests more, like journalistically related.
So you said that you didn't realize it before. Would you say that it was because you just weren't paying attention? Like, were you keeping a journal and you love to write, or you would write essays or novels or stories?
No, I'm a really disorganized person. So, you know, I'm one of those people that would be like, take up journaling on a New Year's resolution.
I see.
Something, and not do it for too
Oh
long.
crap! I like this.
Yeah.
I'm not terrible at this.
What was the thing that kicked it off? I think I kind of realised that while I was over here, actually, like
Really?
in Europe, travelling around with my work, trying to figure out what to do next, and that's when I started to realise I was interested in writing and possibly could be good at it. And I reached out to a friend who I'd met at a young person's political conference.
Sure.
When I was in Australia.
Yeah.
So that was another thing too, to jump back a little bit. I went, while I was working in the graduate job, I went to this like week-long young political persons conference, and it's like where they kind of teach young people who are interested in political social issues about what's going on, what's behind it. You know, you hear from people in different backgrounds and that sort of thing, and that really stoked my interest at the beginning. So that's probably where it started, actually, where I first started to realise I was interested in that stuff. But it took a very long time for me to figure out how to start investigating, you know.
Yeah.
But while I was over in the UK travelling around, I reached out to a friend I met there because she told me she wrote a column once a month for it's a young writers group. Yeah. And they get their writing published on the Australian Christian Today website. And so I reached out to her, and she put me in touch with the guy that runs that. And all I was looking for was to get an article published that I'd written. Particularly about the issues with the lockdown and how it affects people. And he didn't want that, but he was like, "Hey, we'll take you on board. You can start writing once a month." I'm like, "Oh,
yeah." I actually didn't sign up for this, but okay.
Well, exactly. Yeah. So
now you're locked in.
Now I'm locked in. Yeah.
Were your parents a greater influence on you, or you on your parents?
Oh, parents. I'm not too sure about that one, to be honest, because my family is a little complicated. Well, I guess like a lot of families these days. But my parents split when I was young, so I think when I was like around maybe 6.
Okay.
And our mother took us with her to begin with. So I have 3 brothers. So my mother took me and my 3 brothers with her to begin with. But I wanted to be with my dad. And it was a while before I got to go back and live with him again. So I kind of didn't get on with my mother for a long time because of that. And then by the time I went back to live with my dad, I was becoming a teenager, you know, and sort of becoming more independent, you know how it is. and so, and also my stepmother had come into the picture by that point as well, and I really did not get on well with her, like personality clash.
Interesting.
You know?
Okay.
So I was at odds with my dad a lot by that point as well. So I guess to give a short answer, I can see how like they've obviously influenced me in certain ways as a parent would any child. But I think I've also done a lot of development on my own and with other people, being around other people because of having a broken family.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, I'm not sure who's influenced who more, to be honest.
And do you think, like, I suppose we're always affected by our families, but do you feel like the brokenness of your family, like, affected you later on in life, or affected some trajectory in your life, or do you feel like you're still working through that now, or like what's like the journey?
Yeah, well, I'd say it definitely affects your trajectory because it's like the role modelling that your parents do that goes into how you behave a lot, I think, or even what they don't do.
Especially because you subconsciously idolize your parents no matter what.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, it's really hard to not become your parents.
Yeah. I think in that regard, I've fallen a little further from the tree than most. Like, for instance, I think I was just barely the first in my family to finish high school.
Okay.
I was the only one to go to university, and like the things I've ended up doing, and I think also the views I've formed are probably different to, like, my father, for instance, and his views. And that's definitely because of being away from the family, doing my own thing.
Yeah.
What was the question again?
Oh, just like how has your... No, you're answering it perfectly.
Yeah.
How has your parents, like, affected the trajectory of your life?
Oh,
and, like,
right. Yeah.
The disorder there.
Yeah, so I think, like, it would have affected the trajectory in, like, some behavioural ways. Because, like, the chaos of the family in those younger years definitely contributed to how I behaved in my older years. You know, like, I'd say I'm fairly disorganised, like I said, and I wing it a lot, you know. So I've had to learn to plan a bit better and think ahead a bit more. So yeah, there's definitely some things to overcome there, which I think were affected by those earlier years.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Do you have older brothers or younger brothers? Where do you fall?
All younger. Three younger brothers.
So would you say that you played a role in taking care of them, or how did that play out?
Maybe a little bit when we were younger, but not so much like through the teens and that sort of thing, because by that point I was already away from them. So because I was so at odds with my dad and my stepmom, I moved out of home at, I think it might have been 16.
Oh wow!
I'm not sure. Yeah, I went and lived with my uncle and finished school with him in the same town. But it was like, you know, I couldn't be around them.
Yeah.
So by that point there was already a separation between me and my brothers, and I think from there I just went on to do my own thing for a while, and it actually wasn't till the last 2 years that I started to reconnect with my brothers more, particularly the second youngest.
Yeah.
And I get on quite well with him, I think, because we have a lot of similarities. And he's probably the most normal out of all of us, the most stable. So yeah, it was only more so recently we started to become more connected. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad that it's a good thing. BJ, walk us through the best day of your life.
Oh my gosh. Probably have to think about that a bit.
Yeah.
The best day of my life.
Or it could even be like the best week of your life. I mean, sometimes like, you can have like a really good week.
Yeah. That's a hard one to answer right now because the last year's been pretty crazy.
Right.
So I guess probably it's probably not the answer I'd give. I'd had a long time to think about it, but when I got on the plane to fly to the UK, I think that I would say that's like one of the best days.
Really?
Yeah.
Because it's like you know, the expectation,
Yeah.
you know, the hope, because it's like I'm going to do something I've always wanted to do.
Was that like one of the biggest turning points in your life? Was it getting on that plane?
Yeah, I think so. Like, because it's like the decision's final. I'm going through with
Yeah.
it. Something I've wanted to do for so long, and I'd finally made it happen.
Yeah,
you know.
I can relate.
So it's probably the best answer I could give right now.
Good answer. How old are you? You're
33.
33. So, just a kid, basically.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't say that. But,
people are living pretty old
younger
now.
than some. Yeah.
Do you have any big time wasters in your life?
Any what, sorry?
Time wasters, things that just take up unnecessary amounts of time.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. That's one of the things I've been working to overcome in the last year, is like trying to make better use of my time. I think, like, for instance, I've never really been into social media so much, but it's like I used to find myself wasting a lot of time just looking at silly videos or whatever.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just kind of filling in the space,
Right.
to avoid being bored, I guess. So that's probably why people do it. Other time wasters. I'm a major procrastinator.
Yep.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
So it's like, it almost doesn't matter what it is. When you have something important to do, you'll find something else to do.
But the thing is
Something
that
a little less
for as long as you procrastinate and everything turns out fine, you're gonna keep procrastinating.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think I've noticed that as well.
And that was my whole high school. Was like, well, I've got like 3 assignments due tomorrow morning, so I'll just do them tonight. I could have done them over the past week, but then I don't get I get a nice grade on all those assignments, and so why would I do it any other way?
That's exactly right. Yeah, because I don't think I was hugely dedicated in study, but I'd always managed to pull through.
Right.
And sometimes I even did well. And I always look back and I'm like, how well could I have done if I actually tried?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah.
No, exactly right.
Here's the age-old question that hasn't actually become the age-old question yet, but it will be.
Yeah.
How has COVID-19 affected your life?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's a big question. So, like I said, I came over to the UK in March 2020. And pretty much, besides a few months living and working at the hostel, which was actually okay, because I met some good people there and had a decent community. Whole time in the UK was tough, chaotic, and lonely, really lonely.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
especially in the job I was doing with the field work, basically, we didn't work from an office. It was all the teamwork was online. It was all remote. So I was based in Birmingham to begin with for about 6 months, just working from there, driving all over the countryside. So basically just out driving on my own all day. And I did that for a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, must have been really lonely.
Yeah, I got to go to some cool locations. Like, I went as far north as the Shetland Islands.
Yeah.
As far south as Cornwall.
Wow.
As far west as Wales. So
It's like,
yep, I got to see a big spread of the country, but it was all on my own, and I was living in hotels and bed and breakfasts. So a hotel in lockdown is it's like being under house arrest.
Yeah.
Because you check in, you go straight to your room. The only people I talked to for almost a year was 2 meters away and behind a mask.
That's hard if you're not talking to anybody.
It's crazy. I did have some housemates while I was in Birmingham, but it was kind of like everyone just had their own lives, did their own thing, So,
well, especially given how much. You've been volunteering in hospitals, and those are very social environments, and so either you love it or you don't. And given that you keep doing it, I take it you like people.
It's probably a good sign.
I imagine it would have been infuriating to be by yourself for so long.
Yeah, exactly. I'm definitely a very social person, and I enjoy doing things with people. And I think I wrote in an article the one that didn't get published. I think I wrote something like, it's such a blessing to be able to see so much of the country in spite of the lockdown, but it gets old really fast when you're doing everything on your own all the time. That was pretty much summarizes lockdown for me as lonely, chaotic, because I was always on the move.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't had a fixed address since 2020.
Can relate.
Yeah, and what else? Oh yeah, and just like the difficulty that it puts you in when everything's closed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, like one thing I rely on to keep my sanity and sort of have a routine is the gym.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the gym's all closed. And it was the middle of winter.
Yeah.
So, like, when I was in Birmingham last year, we were heading into winter, and then they had the second lockdown and just closed all the gyms again. And I was like, all right, well, what do I do? You know, and
Push-ups.
I managed to get through. Like, I forced myself to go out and jog at
In the winter.
at night time in 0 degrees.
Oh,
Yeah.
And
there you
I
go.
was in
That's some
Europe.
dedication.
Yeah, but yeah, it was tough. It was really tough.
Do you think that it's
So-
had more of a negative or a positive impact in your life, the lockdown,
Yeah, well,
in the long run?
that's the funny thing, because like, I mean, we're all religious, you know, I'm
Right.
Christian, and I think that if you believe, then tough circumstances are about building
Yeah.
character.
Definitely.
And I think God can use that
Mm-hmm.
to build your character, and that's how I see this whole last year.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I think,
You got some personality out of that.
yeah, exactly.
Talking to yourself in the mirror. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully not multiple personalities.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, BJ. Hello.
Oh, hi, BJ. How you doing, BJ? Good, BJ.
You might,
Yeah, I think it's been a big character building experience, and I can see God's hand in that, because like I intended to come and travel, see the world, and maybe find a new career while I was at it,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I got a bit of travel, not as much, and not how I would have liked because of lockdown. Still working out the career side of things, but I've grown a lot as a person as a result of that.
It's good.
More than I would have grown without that experience, you know.
That's important.
Yeah.
So in finale, what would you say, with all the lessons that you've learned in your life, the greatest piece of wisdom you could leave with us today? As a piece of advice or something
Yeah.
you've heard or something that stuck with you?
That's another thing I'd have to think about for a bit.
Putting you on the spot here.
I think I'd say to people, like, if you're a person who likes being in a comfort zone, and you're afraid to take the leap to do something that you've been thinking about, like whether it's to go travel somewhere or try something new, whatever, I'd say I've never regretted taking those risks, you know, and trying something different.
There we go.
And even if it hasn't worked out the way I wanted, which it
Yeah.
never has,
Yeah.
I've always been grateful for the changes, like for the character changes, if nothing else that it's brought. Yeah.
Well, that's golden right there. Thanks for joining us,
You're
BJ.
welcome.
We appreciate
was
having you
great.
on the show. So I'll shake your
Thank
hand.
you. Yeah. And
This
it's
is-
been nice meeting you both
That's right.
over here in this
Definitely.
strange place.
Growing closer to all these Australian people has been very good.
And
The
if
second
Aussies-
Australian
yeah.
person we've met on this trip. And, so far,
Aussies are the best.
yeah. So this has been the first edition of Citizens of the World podcast.
It's an honour.
Come back again.
Peace.